Okay. Welcome everyone to Wednesdays at 1, and welcome back. If you were looking for us last Wednesday, I was a little busy during Holy Week, so I couldn't do it. But thank you for sending me notes and saying, "Oh no, what happened to?" And I'm like, "Oh no, you weren't wrong. I was gone. I was busy." But anyway, thank you for being with me and for continuing to be interested in. I have now, I'm going to just warn you, I have a yellow with an exclamation mark, which tells me at some point, if you lose me, I'll keep trying to come back, but I may have to switch over. So if you lose me, check Facebook first. And if I can't get back up on this dual streaming, I'll just come back on Facebook Live. So you know that. So good afternoon and welcome. We are Wednesday at 1ing our Bible study. We are going to continue the story of the people of Israel who have been wandering in the wilderness, and we are switching now to the book of Joshua. So if you do not have your Bible open to Joshua, now is the time to do that. And we will do our happy study starting with Joshua 1. So you will recognize the fact that we have skipped from where we were to now where we are, that we went from Exodus. We did a little bit of Deuteronomy, a little bit of Numbers. We did not do much of Leviticus, but that's okay. Just so that you know, that we are skipping now into what we call the historical books of the Old Testament. And as we do these historical books, we will unfold, and we will see, especially once we get through Joshua, we're going to see those strands that we've been talking about of authorship are going to start parting again, and we'll have some parallel storytelling between the authors, the two major authors of the Old Testament sections here that we've been working on. So welcome in. Let's take just a moment, and I will, as I am wont to do, light a candle. Maybe I can get to it. Come on, there we go. So let's say a word of prayer. Gracious God, we thank you for the gift of this day. We thank you for the rain that falls from the sky to moisten the earth that is springing to life now during this time of spring. We thank you for that wonderful reminder from nature that everything is new again. And now as we enter into a new liturgical season of Easter, we thank you for the story that where you have come to us over and over and over again, always bringing us into the light, always bringing us into new life. And so for that, we thank you. We thank you for the story, and we thank you for all the people who were part of this journey from which we can learn. And we thank you for sending your son that he might live and teach and show us how to live. And even though he died, we thank you for bringing him back and saying no to death and to evil in the world. We are doing this in his name, we pray. Amen. Okay. So as you recall, we had, for the last 40 years, we've been hanging out in the wilderness, and you know, we came in, Joshua and Caleb went into the promised land, everybody got scared, and God got a little ticked off. So everybody went back out into the wilderness for 40 years, and everyone with the exception of Joshua and Caleb died in the wilderness during that 40-year period. So everybody now, these are all new people. Now I don't think really truly everybody died, because if everybody died, there would only be 1-year-old people. And Caleb and Joshua would certainly have their hands full taking care of all those babies. So we're thinking a little bit metaphorically, but the idea is that that one generation has passed away, and another generation has taken its place. And Moses had given the authority of leadership over to Joshua. He had chosen him. And now we are going to see how Joshua is authorized by God and moved into the leadership. I think it's interesting, especially now, since we are in the midst of a changing leadership in the country, and for which some rejoice and some lament that change in leadership, but there certainly is a different sense in the country. I think there's a new anticipation, even with the hopefulness that some of us have felt with the change of leadership. There are cautions. There are times when we look at what the new leadership is doing and kind of go, what? But so you can still be a really good leader and have a whole bunch of people go, what? To policies and principles. And that's going to be exactly what happens with Joshua, who is, was Moses' pick to be his successor, and is now going to be authorized by God to continue on with this leadership. So I'm going to read a little bit and then we will talk. So if you want to highlight, or if you want to just make notes in your book, that we'll come back and have some conversation. So this is Joshua in the first chapter. After the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord spoke to Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' assistant, saying, my servant Moses is dead. Now proceed to cross the Jordan, you and all this people, into the land that I am giving to them, to the Israelites. Every place that the sole of your foot will tread upon, I have given to you, as I promised to Moses. From the wilderness and the Lebanon as far as the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites to the great sea in the west shall be your territory. No one shall be able to stand against you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not fail you or forsake you. Be strong and courageous, for you shall put this people in possession of the land that I swore to their ancestors to give them. Only be strong and very courageous, being careful to act in accordance with all the law that my servant Moses commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right hand or to the left, so that you may be successful wherever you go. This book of the law shall not depart out of your mouth. You shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to act in accordance with all that is written in it. For then you shall make your way prosperous, and then you shall be successful. I hereby command you, be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened or dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Then Joshua commanded the officers of the people, pass through the camp and command the people, prepare your provisions, for in 3 days you are to cross over the Jordan to go in to take possession of the land that the Lord your God gives you to possess. Okay. Anything that you notice, anything that jumps out at you? Any special things that that you didn't know, or that you went, huh? How about in 3 days? There he is. Hello, Lloyd. Miss Melba with you?
Yeah, she'll be here in a minute.
Okay. What, Sally?
I think one of the things that just hit me was that you shall meditate on it day and night. I mean, he's going to be mighty darn busy meditating on everything.
So, and sleeping when?
Yeah, I want to know, when's he eating? When's he sleeping? Because he's just meditating for, day and night.
Day and night. That's right. Well, one of the things I think that's interesting here is that this is what he's talking about is what Moses told us, this is the law, the 10 commandments. And so I think this might be not a literal kind of thing, but, in other words, keep yourself rooted with what Moses has given you, what God has given through Moses, so that even as you dream, even as you sleep, you're sleeping on the pillow, you're sleeping in the pillow of those stone tablets. I'm sure that was really comfortable.
Right.
But yeah, to just, this is where your, this is where your sustenance comes from, is the 10 commandments. Did anybody notice the be strong and courageous 3 times? And whenever we have those kinds of instructions that come threefold, that's a hint that it's important. So you've got this threefold instruction to be strong and courageous, that things are going to happen. Hey, Miss Melva. So that things are going to happen that are going to test their courage, that are going to test their resolve and their strength, that, they're going to come into the promised land, which has been, that God has promised all the way back to Abraham. And so they're finally there. And instead of saying, yippee, we're all going into the promised land, let's party, he's saying, be strong and courageous, be strong and courageous, be strong and courageous, which gives you a hint that something where you're going to need to be strong and courageous is coming. Okay, so there's a little bit of a warning there. And there is this sense of the consistency of Scripture when he says, in 3 days, you're going to cross over the Jordan. So can you imagine Jesus meditating on this scroll, like before he has to go to the cross? And that God is saying to him, this is a really good thing that's going to happen. This is the intention, and so be strong and courageous, be strong and courageous, be strong and courageous. And in 3 days, you will cross over the Jordan into the promised land. I see that hand, Mr. Lloyd.
Where are we at?
Oh, I'm sorry. We are in Joshua chapter 1.
Joshua.
We are poised to enter into the promised land with Joshua at the lead.
Okay. Give Exodus, Numbers.
And so, so you've got one of the things you might want to do if you haven't done it already is to go, especially if you've got your Lutheran Study Bible, the map on 2100 and 2101 is a great map. And as we're reading in Joshua, it will be helpful to have that open, maybe one Bible open to the map and one Bible open to reading or listening to. But if you can see there, find the Dead Sea down at the bottom in the center. And you can see then also the areas of the promised land that were settled by the 12 tribes. So you probably see to the right of the Red Sea, Reuben, which is in the northern part of Moab. So they would have crossed over and gone around the Dead Sea and gone north along the Jordan, which comes out of the northern end of the Dead Sea. So if you trace your way up a little bit, up the Jordan River, you'll see Jericho on the left in the land of Benjamin. And then if you would go further, you would see what's going to be Jerusalem. Well, Jerusalem is a little bit to the west and south of Jericho. Okay, everybody with me? Okay,
Yep.
Anything else on those first 11 verses of the chapter? Yeah, Melissa?
Okay, so maybe, because we're Americans, but So I'm more sensitive to this idea of stealing people's land.
Good for you.
But I mean, it sure sounds like God's saying, go in and steal these people's land.
Yeah, it is indeed the case. And just because when you think about, what we've talked about is that this is written by humans, from a perspective of the people of Israel, and of course, inspired by God. However, this is a way that when people look back, and we know it happens even today, where the people in the land of Israel are fighting for the land, fighting for the borders, but they're constantly claiming that this is the land that God gave them. And didn't we do just exactly the same thing when we came into America and said, manifest destiny? We own this land just simply because we're here. I don't know, and it was claimed that God had given this land to the people who came over from Northern Europe, but the people who lived in the land probably wouldn't have agreed to those terms, if we had told them at the beginning what our plan was. So a lot of times these stories are here not to say so much of what God performed, but how human beings took that instruction. Now, not to say that there's not going to be a lot of death and destruction as they move into the promised land. And again, we always come back to that. That's like, why would God slay all of these people? Why couldn't he just relocate them or put them on reservations or put them in ships and send them to some other country or something? I mean, it just doesn't seem fair that they had to die. And those are, some of those questions are good questions to grapple with. And I don't think we have a really good, solid answer to that. I think sometimes we just have to say, as it ever has been, and isn't it great that now we're sitting here, and one of the first things that we talk about when we start this book of Joshua is Melissa raises the question, we got people who are going to come in and steal the land. Has anyone ever discussed that when they've looked at the book of Joshua before? So let's hear it for the Spirit moving our brains and our hearts in different directions, that we're noticing that we're saying, hey, wait a minute, because what does this say about God? And what does this say about the people of Israel? And what does it say about us? And some of it's not very pretty, so thank you, Melissa, for that comment. That's sets a whole different tone, for what's going to happen here. In other words, even the promise of land and the promise of prosperity come with a price. And I hate to say that God is testing, but I do think that things happen and that there are things to be learned from the way things unfold. So anyway, how about I read the rest of this chapter and then we'll talk a little more. To the Rubinites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, Joshua said, remember the word that Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded you, saying, the Lord your God is providing you a place of rest and will give you this land. Your wives, your little ones, and your livestock shall remain in the land that Moses gave you beyond the Jordan. But all the warriors among you shall cross over, armed before your kindred, and shall help them, until the Lord gives rest to your kindred as well as to you, and they too shall take possession of the land that the Lord your God is giving them. Then you shall return to your own land and take possession of it, the land that Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave you beyond the Jordan to the east. They answered Joshua, all that you have commanded us, we will do. And wherever you send us, we will go. Just as we obeyed Moses in all things, so we will obey you. Only may the Lord your God be with you as he was with Moses. Whoever rebels against your orders and disobeys your words, whatever you command shall be put to death. Only be what? Strong and courageous. Okay, so 3 times plus 1. So you're getting the message here. I think, anybody have any comments or aha moments, just things that struck you? Okay, just a reminder in verse 12, it says to the Rubinites, obviously Reuben, one of the 12 tribes. The Gadites were not one of the 12 tribes, so we have peoples here who are joining them as they come into the promised land. I don't think we think about that often, that there were others, people that they had picked up. I mean, we know Miriam's father, there were people living in Moab who they picked up along the way. And so some of those people are going to enter into this land with them. The half tribe of Manasseh would have been Ephraim and Manasseh, who were Joseph's sons, and Joseph ceded his land to his 2 sons. So there were, and that was completed the 12 tribes then. So there were 12 peoples who were going to settle in the promised land. Joseph ceded his land to his sons, and the Levites had no land. So the 2 sons took Joseph's spot and the Levi's spot as far as being part of the 12 tribes. Just a reminder of that. Once again, there is this reiteration all through here that this is the land that the Lord has promised. This is the land that the Lord is giving to them. And so, who are we to question? And yet, if you do not read scripture literally, then you have this interpretation that's just going on in your head along with, whatever you're thinking in just what Melissa brought up. Is that fair for God to choose? But again, here's the other thing that we were kind of dragging along with us throughout the wilderness is it fair that God would have a chosen people? So fairness changes depending on what your perspective is. So anyway, kind of keep that in mind. Okay, anything questionable? I mean, this is pretty straightforward. Okay, let's get to the good part. Chapter 2. Then Joshua, son of Nun, sent 2 men secretly from Shittim as spies, saying, "Go view the land, especially Jericho." So they went, and they entered the house of a prostitute whose name was Rahab, and spent the night there. The king of Jericho was told, "Some Israelites have come here tonight to search out the land." Then the king of Jericho sent orders to Rahab, "Bring out the men who have come to you, who entered your house, for they have come only to search out the whole land." But the woman took the 2 men and hid them. Then she said, "True, the men came to me, but I did not know where they came from. And when it was time to close the gate at dark, the men went out. Where the men went, I do not know. Pursue them quickly, for you can overtake them." She had, however, brought them up to the roof and hidden them with stalks of flax that she had laid out on the roof. So the men pursued them on the way to the Jordan as far as the fords. And as soon as the pursuers had gone out, the gate was shut. Before they went to sleep, she came up to them on the roof and said to the men, "I know that the Lord has given you the land, and that dread of you has fallen on us, and that all the inhabitants of the land melt in fear before you. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea before you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to the 2 kings of the Amorites that were beyond the Jordan, to Sihon and Og, whom you utterly destroyed. As soon as we heard it, our hearts melted, and there was no courage left in any of us because of you. The Lord your God is indeed God in heaven above and on earth below. Now then, since I have dealt kindly with you, swear to me by the Lord that you in turn will deal kindly with my family. Give me a sign of good faith that you will spare my father and mother, my brothers and sisters, and all who belong to them, and deliver our lives from death. The man said to her, our life for yours. If you do not tell this business of ours, then we will deal kindly and faithfully with you when the Lord gives us the land. Then she let them down by a rope through the window, for her house was on the outer side of the city wall, and she resided within the wall itself. She said to them, go toward the hill country, so that the pursuers may not come upon you. Hide yourself there 3 days until the pursuers have returned. Then afterward you may go on your way. The men said to her, we will be released from this oath that you have made us swear to you, if we invade the land and you do not tie the crimson cord in the window through which you let us down. And you do not gather into your house your father and mother, your brothers, and all your family. If any of you go out of the doors of your house into the streets, they shall be responsible for their own death, and we shall be innocent. But if a hand is laid upon any who are with you in the house, we shall bear the responsibility for their death. But if you tell this business of ours, then we shall be released from this oath that you made us swear to you. She said, according to your words, so be it. She sent them away, and they departed. Then she tied the crimson cord in the window. They departed and went into the hill country 3 days until the pursuers returned. The pursuers had searched all along the way and found nothing. Then the 2 men came down again from the hill country. They crossed over, came to Joshua, son of Nun, and told him all that had happened to them. They said to Joshua, truly, the Lord has given all the land into our hands. Moreover, all the inhabitants of the land melt in fear before us. Okay, so the news has spread that these folks are coming and that it's time to move, time to move on. The cool thing about this, I think, is that the people of the land know that the Israelites are coming. So there is a sense of, if they truly want to be saved, they have the opportunity to flee. So there's kind of a, an exodus strategy for the people who live in the land. And the fact that they know that they're coming and that they know what their plan is, I think is a kind of an interesting turn on the story, so that it's not just that they surprise them at night and kill them all. There is some sense of them having an opportunity to move on. So what do you think about Rahab? How did, this is a woman that we have not had. I mean, we got a whole story about her. We know more about Rahab than we know about many of the women in the Old Testament. Thoughts on Rahab?
I think she was a pretty gutsy lady,
Mm-hmm.
To save them. And this whole story reminds me of the Passover story,
Mm-hmm.
with tying the red ribbon in the window, and we will go away and we won't bother you.
Mm-hmm.
After she asked them to help, for their help.
Mm-hmm. And
it almost sounds like she's a convert,
mm-hmm.
because she talks about believing her God,
Mm-hmm.
about God. I know God gave you this land,
right?
So there's a lot. She's very deep character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then it's like you think, okay, they've stopped. They're at the house of a prostitute, and you kind of wonder, okay, they're done scouting for the day, or they, is this where they or was this a situation where, because of her proximity to the gates, she also took in boarders, whether or not they took advantage of her favors is unclear. I don't think that's a hinted in, but whenever you say prostitute in the story, you're kind of like, huh, well, that's interesting. They're staying in the house of a prostitute. Is that because no one would think to look in the house of a prostitute? I would think that would be the first place people would look for strangers who come to town through the gates. So there's
Well,
some
maybe there's a lot of people going in and out of her house.
could be. Well, yeah, that if people saw him going in, it wouldn't be a big deal,
Well,
but
it also
still.
occurred to me, I mean, basically she's betraying her,
Her king.
Yeah. But it occurred to me that, if she's reduced to sex work, maybe she doesn't have much investment in the current system,
Mm-hmm. And she seems to be, she's basically saving her entire family. So we have echoes here of Esther, who saves the Jewish people later with her story by intervening because she believes and trusts in what the Lord says, or what she feels like this is what the Lord is doing. And I may not like the Lord's tactics, but I believe that the Lord has told you to come into this land. So I'm not going to argue with you. I'm going to throw my lot in with you and hopefully save my family, but I love the negotiation with her. She makes them swear an oath. And I'm like, ooh, you go, girl. This is a prostitute who's making these people who have come from the people of Israel, who everybody's afraid of. And she's got the guts to say, no. You got to promise me now because I hid you and kept you safe. So you got to help me out. And then they say, okay, put a red cord in the window. However, and then they're like negotiating the terms of the contract. If you don't gather your family into the house, if they go back out into the town and they get hurt, not our problem, but if the cord isn't there, not our problem, but if we see the cord and your people are inside, everything will go well for you. But I love that kind of back and forth that they're bickering about how to seal this oath. And they seem to be a little cheeky about the fact that she even made them swear an oath in the first place. And I'm thinking, way to go, girl. The other thing is obviously the crimson cord is, echoes. You get the echoes of Passover for sure. But one of the things I want you to do just real quick, leave your finger in where you are in Joshua and go to Matthew 1:15. That's in the New Testament. I know we've been in the Old Testament for a long time. So Matthew 1:15. Okay, whoops. It's in the genealogy. Where did where I've gone wrong here? Oh, 1:5. Sorry. 1:5. So, and Salmon, the father of Boaz by Rahab. Okay. So we have people here. Remember remember Boaz was Ruth, the story of Ruth, and that he was from Moab. So he is connected to Rahab, who is later on going to become, part of, she's going to be embraced by the people of Israel and end up being part of the genealogy of Jesus. She's going to figure into the Savior, which I think is amazing because apparently genetically she has salvation in her blood. She's going to save these two guys, and 500 years later, well, more than that, 1,500 years later, Jesus is going to be one of her descendants. So I love that. When you read through those genealogies sometime, read through all the footnotes and you come back to these stories. So you can flip back to Joshua, and I'm going to correct my note in the margin here. Matthew 1:5, not 15. Okay. Anything else? Okay, so and Joshua takes this little foray by the two guys, the two spies, the fact that they've been saved by Rahab and they've returned safely, and tell Joshua that, you know, everybody's afraid of them, so they don't really have to be too concerned about getting a huge attack force awaiting for them. And he says, truly the Lord has given all the land into our hands. Moreover, all the inhabitants of the land melt in fear before us. So the melting in fear would be, you know, the impetus for these people to run and not to stand and fight. So that helps them understand, you know, how this is going to go. Okay, you got another chapter in you?
Mhm.
Okay, so let me go on in chapter 3. Early in the morning, Joshua rose and set out from Shittim with all the Israelites, and they came to the Jordan. They camped there before crossing over. At the end of 3 days, the officers went through the camp and commanded the people, when you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God being carried by the Levitical priests, then you shall set out from your place. Follow it so that you may know the way you should go, for you have not passed this way before. Yet there shall be a space between you and it, a distance of about 2,000 cubits. Do not come any nearer to it. Then Joshua said to the people, sanctify yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you. To the priests, Joshua said, take up the ark of the covenant and pass on in front of the people. So they took up the ark of the covenant and went in front of the people. The Lord said to Joshua, this day I will begin to exalt you in the sight of all Israel, so that they may know that I will be with you as I was with Moses. You are the one who shall command the priests who bear the ark of the covenant. When you come to the edge of the waters of the Jordan, you shall stand still in the Jordan. Joshua then said to the Israelites, draw near and hear the words of the Lord your God. Joshua said, by this you shall know that among you is the living God, who without fail will drive out from before you the Canaanites, Hittites, Hivites, Perizzites, Girgashites, Amorites, and Jebusites. The ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth is going to pass before you into the Jordan. So now select 12 men from the tribes of Israel, one from each tribe. When the soles of the feet of the priests who bear the ark of the Lord of all the earth, rest in the waters of the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan flowing from above shall be cut off, and they shall stand in a single heap. When the people set out from their tents to cross over the Jordan, the priests bearing the ark of the covenant were in front of the people. Now the Jordan overflows all its banks throughout the time of harvest. Excuse me. So when those who bore the ark had come to the Jordan, and the feet of the priests bearing the ark were dipped in the edge of the waters flowing from above stood still, rising up in a single heap far off at Adam, the city that is beside Zarethan, while those flowing toward the sea of the Arabah, the Dead Sea, were wholly cut off. Then the people crossed over opposite Jericho. While all Israel were crossing over on dry ground, the priests who bore the ark of the covenant of the Lord stood on dry ground in the middle of the Jordan until the entire nation finished crossing over the Jordan. Okay, how many of you knew that was there? Was this new to any of you, that there was another parting of the sea to enter into a new phase of their life together?
Mhm.
So 3 days they wait, 3 days they prepare to go into this new life that they're going to have. And then here we have now the reminder that the Ark of the Covenant has been traveling with them the whole time. The box that has the broken fragments of the Ten Commandments, and Aaron's rod, and a jar of manna to remind them of their time in the wilderness. But the ark was the symbol of the presence of God. So we have the ark being commanded to go first into the water, carried by the Levitical priests. And there was at the time a group of those who were carrying, the ark had poles, so there would have been at least 4 ark bearers. And those would have been Levitical priests who were on this particular duty, so they were set aside as particularly holy, but also would have been militarily trained in the event that someone would come to attack or try to steal the ark. So these are the big guys, these are the Secret Service guys, well trained, but also who have been set apart as priests for this particular purpose. What else? Comments? Any things you see that just kind of you didn't know, or kind of I had to laugh. How your own experience changes the way you read things. Follow it so that you may know the way you should go, for you have not passed this way before. Yet there shall be a space between you and it. So we're keeping social distance from the ark so that we don't get fried from the power of God that might be emanating from the ark. I've never even thought about that distance before, but now you say keeping distance, and boy, we're all right there. 6 feet, got to stay 6 feet away from the ark, at least at the minimum. And then don't come nearer to it. Okay. And when you take, you have to sanctify yourselves. In other words, purify yourselves in the waters, get yourselves ready for this journey as we follow the ark, because you're going to be in close proximity to the ark. You want to be as holy as you can be. So sanctify yourself, be ready for this journey. And then Joshua gives them instructions about how this will happen, that the ark will go first and stop in the middle of the Jordan. And then there will be 12 representatives from the 12 tribes who will come next. And as they go through, when their feet touch the water, this entourage of the ark and the 12 representatives, the waters from the north that are coming down the riverbanks will stop and pile up. I like that. You ever think about water piling up, but it's like as if there were an invisible wall, and the tsunami is coming, but it's going to stop right before it gets to the people. So the water will be swelling up on one side, and then because there's no water coming down the riverbank, the river below them will be dry. So it's, instead of the parting of the waters, it's the heaping up of the waters that stops the water. Regardless, the effect is the same, that the people will cross on dry ground. So you can imagine all these people, it took a while for them to get through. And you kind of wonder, truly, would there have been a regular spill over north of Jericho so that the lands were also watered, because it would spill over the banks? Obviously there was this plexiglass wall so that they wouldn't breathe on the water. Just kidding. But there was, there's the water is heaping up so it doesn't engulf the people crossing, but it would have backed up. It says it backs up all the way to Adam, to way upriver. But also there's this mention of, the way the waters had spilled over during the harvest time. And I don't believe we have any indication of whether or not this is the harvest time. So would it have been something that they would have been used to happening? But what would the people thought upriver if all of a sudden they're getting like a harvest overflow that isn't timely? We don't know. We don't know that. So Anything else that you see that you want to comment on?
Do they know what were the numbers, or do we even have any?
Yeah, we do. It's in numbers. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, Lloyd, but it's in the tens of thousands. I want to say 40,000, but I don't know that's for true. But, if you wanted to look back in numbers as they start to count the tribes and take the census, they would come up with a total. I don't have my research assistant here. Pam's out today. So that might be a Google question. How many people crossed the Jordan into the promised land? But it was tens of thousands. Okay.
They had 12 tribes and they were going to divide the land into 12 sections.
Right.
How did they know where it was going to be? Because they said they had never been there before.
True. Well, I mean, the Lord told Joshua where to send them. We're going to get to that. There is a little section on that. But I'm trying to think if I can hang on one second. Let me see if I can quickly find.
Google says 40,000 men from the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and half tribe of Manasseh had crossed over first, armed and ready for battle.
Okay. Oh, that's where the 40,000 came from that I was thinking of.
Yeah.
So if that was just two tribes and some other people, if we had, I would say 10. Yeah. It was a passel of folks. And it probably took 3 days to get them across the river. Although, as the longer the water was held back, the more the bed would be dry. So, I was thinking the longer it took, the more people could cross because the riverbed would have been dry. More of it would have gotten dry and they could cross. I have not been to that site in the Jordan, so I don't know what's on either side, if it's, a gentle slope down to the river or if there's like a drop off or whatever. So I don't know how many people could have forded there was obviously a place where normally they did, which would have been the most shallow part so that people could get across. But I don't remember. I didn't get to go there when I visited the Holy Land, so I don't know. But that's something else I'm sure you could probably find a picture on Google. Okay, let's see here.
I did think about one thing. We're bringing in all these thousands and thousands of people. Mm-hmm. You can see why the people who were living there probably ran away. But where did they go to? I mean, did we just keep pushing them more? Because they said that the Lord gave them the land from the Euphrates to the
Mediterranean.
Yeah, the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
So that was a huge area, of that country. Where were all these people that were living in this area? Where did they go?
Well, and I think it depends on the tribe you're talking about, depending on some of the areas. I believe some of them let the people stay. I mean, these were little settlements. I mean, this wasn't like, walking into New York City or anything, even Jericho, which is a fairly sizable town now, was just a smallish city at that point. So it could have been that, they moved in and settled and people, they coexisted with people who were there. I think there was probably a lot of that going on, but they probably also pushed them north into what's modern day Syria, or Iraq. One of
the things I noticed was it was the Canaanites, and the Canaanites are weren't they the people that were living and weren't allowed to come into Jerusalem, or they were if I got a name wrong?
No, you're thinking of the Samaritans.
Yeah, the Samaritans. Okay.
Yeah. No, Canaanites would have been the Native Americans. The Canaanites had been there when Abraham came to the land of Canaan. That's what they called the people of the land. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
So yeah, I kind of hold on to those questions, because as we get past Jericho and start settling out into the promised land, those will be good questions. And pick your favorite tribe, and we can, and when we mention them, you can follow them to see where they ended up. I mean, you can see on the map at the back that they each had certain things, and some of them are bigger than others, because if they wanted grazing land, they would have gone to to where there were fields and less fertile soil, but better grazing land. And then the ones who went up north, up to the Sea of Galilee and up in there, that's much more fertile. The northern kingdom, the northern part of the land where Jesus was born, was the fertile place. That was the breadbasket. And honestly, it's kind of like Northern and Southern California. It's like in Southern California, there's a lot of high desert and that kind of thing. Whereas in Northern California, it's much more fertile, more deciduous trees, a lot more planting. So some of the tribes were farmers. So they went to where the fertile land was, and some of them were herders. And so they went where the grazing land was. And so that would have been most of the South, would have been people who had herds, flocks of sheep and goats and, whatever kind of animals that they were herding. Okay, anything else? Okay, now I've talked my way into not having the time to do chapter 4. So thanks for that. So we are crossing over the Jordan, even as we speak. It's going to take till next Wednesday for them to all get across the Jordan River. So we just have to take a little pause here now, so that while they're getting across the river, and we will start then next week at Joshua 4. So that will be for the 14th. Okay. All righty then. And those of you who came in later and didn't hear, I'm gonna throw out a thing that Roger threw out to me. If you were at the cast discussion last night or not, he's going to do another cast session on the 20th, which is Tuesday night. But then he is interested in maybe doing a book over the summer, and what he was thinking about doing was To Kill a Mockingbird, which has, because as, just something different to kind of change it up. But he said he had just read a passage of it, and with all of the stuff that he's been reading from Cast and he picked up Waking Up White as well, how differently the story of Mockingbird unfolds with that, with that awareness, now that we've been woke, or at least we are waking to that. So keep that in mind, or if you have other suggestions, I think he would be willing to carry on more of a discussion kind of group than a teaching kind of group. But because, as I say, he does that so much better than I. So anyway, if you're interested, let him know, because he likes encouragement. So anyway, okay. All right. Well, thank you all for being with me today. I'll see you next Wednesday, if not before, and see you Sunday, so where we revisit our good buddy Thomas yet again, always on the second Sunday of Easter. What more can you do with Thomas? We just have to find something new to do with Thomas this week. So, okay, I will see you all next time. Thanks so much for being with me, and have a great day. Stay dry. It's pouring in Stillwell. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
My power went off for a few minutes, but came back on.
Okay. Well, hopefully you'll keep your power and stay dry.
Yes.
See y'all.
Bye.